Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining our webinar tonight. I'm very excited about this evening. I'm here with our Director of Activism,
Hi.
Lauren Handy. My name is Caroline Smith. I am PAAU's new Executive Director, and I am very excited about tonight. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. I see you guys are joining on, so I'm just going to do a brief overview of the evening, introduce our speakers, and then I'm going to hand it over to Lauren and our first speakers. So like I said, my name is Caroline. We are here in Washington, D.C. getting ready for the trial that is starting on Wednesday. We've been doing a lot of prep for the trial and getting everything ready, and this is our first event of the week. So thank you for being a part of this. We are going to be hearing from several people tonight. Unfortunately, there is a tornado watch in DC right now, and a lot of flights were getting delayed, and there's a lot of crazy weather happening. So we're not going to be able to hear from Martin or Joan tonight, but we've got a lot of speakers coming on that are going to be really exciting to hear from, and you're going to learn a lot. So like I said, Lauren is going to be speaking as well. I also have our Director of Community Organizing, Kristen Turner, here. And we're going to be hearing from Teresa Wikovenak, the founder of PAAU, as well as Herb Garrity, who is one of the defendants on this trial this week. So I'm going to go ahead and get you guys started. I want to remind you to visit the PAAU on Trial website. It's paunow.org/PAAU on Trial. It's got so much information, really good website about the trial and what you can do to get involved. It gives you so many opportunities to get involved in DC or from your hometown. And make sure to be following along on our social media as we are at the trial. And it's going to be a crazy week or two. So make sure to stay following along and use the hashtag PAAU on Trial so that we can all see what you guys are doing in your hometowns. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. I'm going to introduce Lauren is going to be speaking, as well as Kristen. We're going to switch spots so you guys can see her. And yeah, thanks for coming tonight.
Hey. Great introduction, Caroline. We have lots of questions for you.
Yes.
Burning questions you've been wanting answered. We're here to answer them. So let's jump right into it. I'm Kristen Turner, new title of Director of Community Organizing, and I'm very honored to be here with my friend and colleague, Lauren Handy, who's going to be on trial alongside many other brave activists. And let's just start out. What is the FACE Act? Why did it come into existence? This is a big one. It's a big one for people who don't know a lot about what even rescue is or the history of the pro-life movement. And so, do you want to start off, Lauren? What is the FACE Act? Why was it made?
Well, the FACE Act was basically to squash and put fear into people who were engaging in nonviolent direct action in the context of stopping abortions. And it's basically putting your body between the killer and the child. And this can look many ways. Over the years, there's been people who reinvent, put their spin on it. You have opportunity rescues, you have red rose rescues, you have pink rose rescues. But what it started out was traditional rescues, where you would have people standing in front of the doors and saying, "No one dies today." And this caught on quickly. The spirit of rescue was set ablaze among the movement because you were literally living out your values, that if abortion is murder, you're acting on it. You're acting on it in a way that is consistent with the values of nonviolence and equality. And it is an estimate, over 70,000 pro-lifers participated in this form of civil disobedience and were arrested. One of the largest civil rights movement in our history as a country. And the administration, the current administration, the Clinton administration, was very pro-abortion, and they weaponized the DOJ, pushed that legislative through to pass the FACE Act, which made the penalties harsher than just a normal trespassing sentence.
So normally for any type of blocking the door, somebody wouldn't get 10 years in prison. I mean, that's completely unreasonable. And so what we see with the FACE Act is specifically targeting someone because they're trying to interpose between a killer and a child. So the FACE Act is very unique in that way, and it came into existence to stop the rescue movement. It was a response to something effective. And the reality is, these people wouldn't be prosecuted and persecuted and been put under such scrutiny unless they were a serious nonviolent threat to the abortion industrial complex. So now we can get into how and why it was weaponized against pro-lifers. We went a little bit into that, how it was used. It was used to shut down the rescue movement. I mean, we saw thousands of people who before were emboldened to align their actions with their values, now afraid and cowering in fear at a government who threatened to imprison them for over a decade. And so that was clearly a huge effect. The rescue movement died out, and we're here to bring it back. We're here to unapologetically interpose ourselves. And so if you want to talk a little bit more about that and maybe some of your experience doing that, I think that would shine light on something for the audience.
We know rescue saves lives. We see it all the time. When PAAU engages in direct action, we pass out the Let Them Live helpline number. We attach it to a rose, and we give those roses out to the abortion seekers, these moms, these parents who need desperate help, with people who have wanted pregnancies but are seeking out these survival abortions. And Let Them Live is coming and telling us that they're having these moms and abortion seekers call their hotline during our rescues or after our rescues. And so we know lives are being saved.
And, we thought, is it maybe one or two people who've called the hotline? But no, they told us almost every single time we do a rescue, they're getting calls. This clearly reaching out to people, risking something, being willing to sacrifice, and not just being somebody who is standing on the sidelines, who's the nice person on the sidewalk, who, they're just doing their due diligence. If you are willing to risk something to tell that person the truth, they see that. They can identify with that, and they can say, this person probably has been through some tough stuff too. I'm going to go ahead and listen. And a lot of people are looking for a sign. So,
and I mean, I follow the point that even if no lives were saved, the fact of the matter, the principle is, if they are fully human, and that is what pro-lifers believe, they're fully human, a full equal worth of me and you rescue them. You do what you can to save their lives. And you just can't say, I believe our culture right now doesn't believe that abortion is murder because they don't see people acting like abortion is murder. And I guess that brings us back, if we go back to 2020 and what this case is about. In 2020, we engaged in efforts to expose the crimes of Cesare Santangelo and who was committing infanticide. We've all seen the pictures of the babies with the Justice for the Five that were found 2 years later. Cesare Santangelo, the abortion provider of the later term abortion business, Washington Surgery, he's a bad person.
Yep.
He violates informed consent. He's killed patients, and he commits infanticide. And, very brave people, myself included, we went there and we had to do what we had to do. And these crimes, this infanticide, this murder, this exploitation, someone has to do something. We have to. We can't let this murder continue.
Yes, and that's our next step as a movement. We overturned Roe. We were able to succeed through unity and through diversity through that unity, and able to come to a conclusion that we needed to overturn Roe together. And I believe that the FACE Act should be our next unifying goal as a movement, because the reality is we're not going to continue to move forward. We're not going to be able to save these children in states like California, where I'm from. I know what it's like in the battleground there. We're not going to be able to save these babies through legislative means yet. We must sacrifice, we must save them, and we must repeal the FACE Act in order to do this in a way that's accessible for people, a way where they're not threatened with prison for 10 years. And I truly believe that the FACE Act is our next unifying goal as a movement. We need to work towards repealing it. And I think for a lot of people in the pro-life movement, they get worried. What will happen when the FACE Act is overturned? And to that, I say, trespassing, vandalism, all those things are still within local laws. If the FACE Act is overturned, these are still there's going to be means of justice for them, is basically what I'm saying. And furthermore, the FACE Act is not protecting our pregnancy centers.
Mhm.
We see it time and time again, pregnancy centers getting vandalized, firebombed, destroyed, and even threats of violence against people who work at them. The FACE Act is clearly not helping these pregnancy centers. So we can say reliably that overturning the FACE Act would be a complete positive for us.
Mhm. We can protect our crisis pregnancy centers, our pregnancy resource centers, without legitimizing abortion access.
100%. And, you know, are you introducing the next speaker? Okay, awesome. So I'll throw it back to Caroline. Thank you so much for having me on.
Perfect. All right. Thank you guys for giving us that little introduction. I think it's helpful to have some background on what the FACE Act is, why we need to repeal it, and what it has to do with this case. I'm going to introduce our next speaker. Herb is currently in the car on his way to DC, so we're going to get him on here, and hopefully his signal is going to be good enough. So go ahead. Oh, we can see you. Perfect. So Herb's going to be speaking for a little bit. Like I said, he is one of the defendants on this case alongside Lauren, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity to hear from him tonight.
Hi, everyone. As Caroline said, I'm currently en route to DC. My service hasn't been great, so hopefully I can get through this quickly. I've only been able to hear every other sentence or so, so if Lauren said anything incriminating, I didn't hear it and I don't agree with it. But I'm excited to be coming. I've been really grateful so far for the support that we've seen from the pro-life movement. We've seen both, of course, people have donated to PAAU and to my legal defense fund from all over the country and the world to show that the pro-life movement is in support of rescuers. And we've also seen some pro-life leaders outwardly calling for the repeal of FACE for the first time in decades. And so I think that Kristen totally hit the nail on the head that this can be a unifying moment. I've seen some comments that that they appreciate the sacrifice that me and Lauren might have to endure for these babies and for these mothers, the victims of Sant'Angelo. And I hope that that's true, that people are inspired by this sacrifice to take action. I think that, sort of as other people have alluded to, we rescue the unborn because they are human beings. If there was a building, a business that you could walk into and take your 2-year-old son to get dismembered legally, I don't think that most people would be comfortable just praying for that practice to end, and for maybe the most dedicated people standing and praying outside on the sidewalk and then voting Republican every 4 years. If that existed, you would be there actively rescuing those children. And if you say that abortion is murder, or that abortion is killing or violence against an innocent human being, you should put those words into action. I think that the easiest way for everyone to get involved, I completely recognize that not everyone can or should take the kinds of risks that others can. But everyone can sacrifice a little bit for the unborn, and that could be as simple as an hour every Saturday morning, typically the busiest abortion days, going out to the abortion clinic in your city. Weaponized International has secular, inclusive sidewalk advocacy materials, as does PAAU. I recommend downloading them both and getting out to your local abortion clinic. You can be there to rescue those children through peaceful, law-abiding sidewalk advocacy, and that, to me, is sort of the bare minimum that all of us should be doing in order to sacrifice for these children, whether it's an hour a week or it's a couple hours every weekend, or as often as you can be out there, because we know people in our movement and outside of our movement who have had abortions and who have expressed to us that everyone in their life was telling them that they can't do this. And that if one person was out there offering them the material resources they need to be able to feel like they can choose life, they would have done it. So it's all of our responsibility to all of the members of our community to be there offering those resources and being that village. If you do not live in an area where there is an operating abortion clinic, good for you. You can still get involved, obviously. You can donate to PAAU. I'm sure the link is somewhere, but pownow.org/POW on trial, I think, has a donate link. That's all that I want to say. Thank you guys for paying attention. And just remember that, or at least what I have to tell myself and what keeps me going right now, is that regardless of whatever happens to me and Lauren, if we're found guilty or if we're acquitted, if we're sentenced to a year in prison or 11 years in prison, that whatever the government does to us, it will be nothing compared to what they allow to be done to unborn children in this country every day. Cesare Santangelo is an outlier. Most abortionists do not specialize in killing healthy babies in healthy mothers past the point that they can survive outside the womb. But he's not that much of an outlier in Washington, D.C. or in states where there are no restrictions. I think that as much attention the pro-life movement can get on Santangelo and his crimes and his victims, the more people will wake up to the need for the bare minimum of a federal 15-week ban and other legislation that will protect women and children in this country. So thank you guys for having me. Thank you to the PAAU team, especially Lauren, everyone in DC, everyone coming into DC, for organizing these solidarity events. I'm glad to see that support from you guys and from everyone who is showing up on Wednesday or on Thursday, on the whole week, but Wednesday. Okay, goodbye, everyone.
Bye, Herb. Thank you so much. Awesome. Well, I'm glad that the cell signal ended up working. I think he's somewhere driving in Virginia or West Virginia, Pennsylvania, something like that. Yeah, I think that last point that Herb said, and I think this is something we try to remind ourselves about a lot, is no matter the consequences, no matter the sacrifice, it's not anything close to being ripped limb from limb with forceps. So I think it's a hard thing to remind yourself of because it's a hard thing to imagine happening to you. But I think it's very important to ground ourselves in that as we go through these next couple weeks. So we're going to move right along. I am very excited to have on the founder of PAAU, Teresa Bukovac. She is joining us from Michigan right now, visiting her family. So hi, how's it going?
Hey, everybody. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for hosting this webinar. It is an honor to stand with you, Lauren and Herb. I want to thank all of the people who tuned in tonight from across the country. We have had so much interest in this case, not just here in the United States, but across the entire globe. People are looking at the pro-life movement in the United States for direction. And I want you to know that you aren't alone. If you are here on this call with us tonight, you are part of a huge community of activists and allies who are dedicated to exploring ways that we can expand socioeconomic justice for the unborn and to following the science of social justice by employing direct action tactics to our activism. So I also want to say just how incredibly proud I am of every decision that Lauren and Herb made in the situation that they are facing federal charges for. They did the right thing. They took the right action. They made the right sacrifices. And no matter how many of their opponents will try to criticize their actions and how much the press may try to make them out to be criminals or bad people, I want you to know how well I know these people. Herb and Lauren and I go back so far together. We've been doing activism together since at least 2017. And together we really have gone down this path of direct action where we weren't necessarily all there in the beginning. But I would say that Lauren in particular really helped Herb and I to see how important it is to take risks and to actually make sacrifices for these children. And that was through her introductions to writers like introducing me to writers like and Herb to writers like Gene Sharp. And she introduced me to a documentary film called How to Topple a Dictator. And this film is about a nonviolent social justice uprising in Eastern Europe during the Serbian, Croatian, and Bosnian conflicts. And one thing that I really took from that documentary and from those stories was that while the United States used violent warfare to try to oust the dictator Slobodan Milosevic, they spent millions of dollars and weeks bombing civilian and government regions of Eastern Europe. It did nothing to oust this dictator. He remained. He was unmoved, and it took the dedication and total commitment to nonviolence, but using direct action to actually ultimately oust him as a dictator. And I found that to be such an inspiring story. And that led me to more traditional stories of nonviolent direct action. Martin Luther King's letter from a Birmingham jail, and the teachings of Gandhi in the Indian Revolution. And it was a very uncomfortable truth for me, because I came into the pro-life movement as a leftist, as an atheist, and from a part of the movement that was very hostile to the rescue movement of the 80s and 90s, and hostile to anything that kind of resembled this more like conservative method, or that was perceived to be a conservative method of activism. And so it took me years before I was even really willing to hold a sign with an abortion victim on the sign. And it took even longer before I finally faced my first arrest, which was just a month after Lauren and Herb made a visit to the Washington Surgery Center. It was just like a coincidence that I wasn't there in DC with them, but I really want you guys to know how much I stand in solidarity with what they did. And I would have been there that day with them, right alongside them, and facing these charges with them proudly, had I been there that day. But thanks to Lauren, going back a little bit, thanks to Lauren, Herb and I really did start to see the light, and we did start to interact with rescuers from the 80s and 90s. And it really became clear to me at some point that this had nothing to do with being conservative, that there is a science to social justice. There is a way of achieving justice for the unborn, and it isn't by pretty much any other means in the history of the world when it comes to actually being able to create real change for a marginalized group. It requires people to take incredible risks. And so I encourage you guys to also go down that path, because there isn't another path. We're either going to just keep praying about abortion for the next 50, 100, 150 years, or we're going to actually end it. But we're not going to be able to end it until people like you who is listening to this right now, is willing to take that first step. I'm not saying run out and like break a law immediately, but we must be willing to break minor laws in order to stop major crimes from happening against humanity. And that's just a fact. And I want you to know that, we are in the midst of a massive genocide. This is real. Lauren and I have held these victims in our hands. Okay. This isn't just some philosophical idea. These victims are being slaughtered across the globe. And until we step up and are actually willing to counter that with our own bodies and risk our own freedoms, that will continue. I want to impress upon you the importance of having solidarity in this moment. Because like Kristen and Lauren both mentioned, the FACE Act was designed to crush the rescue movement, and it was successful. After 1994, the rescue movement basically was ended under the FACE Act. And we're attempting to bring back rescue. Many of you have seen the hashtag that we use, bring back rescue. But understand that we cannot do that unless we are willing to break through the challenges that the state is going to create for us. If we give up in these moments, if we fail to show solidarity, if we fail to show continued bravery, they will just crush us again. And we cannot let that happen. We must do the job that couldn't be done in 94 or that wasn't done in 94. So I'm asking you once again to keep that in mind and to be brave and to remember that your solidarity with us and with Lauren and Herb and all of the other rescuers is critical. Don't be deterred. Victory is within reach, but we can't get there if we keep getting scared. Yes, the threat of federal prison time is absolutely terrifying, but for the most part, we're not going to be executed, okay? And literally every other genocide that people have to fight on this globe, for the most part, if they're going to fight it, they're going to risk their actual lives. Herb and Lauren may end up having to make this incredible sacrifice, but they will get out. They will be free again. And we have to remember that if we aren't even willing to make the sacrifice of our time and our freedom, again, this will never end. So if you believe this is murder like we do, and I think you do because that's why you're on here, and if you also agree that this is a genocide, then we're going to need to put on our big people pants, and we're going to have to do the hard work, take the risks, and we're going to have to be there for each other. And remember, like I said, you are not alone. You are part of an enormous community. And the more you are willing to stand up and stand with rescuers and to take risks, the more others will too. And that's how nonviolent direct action works and is effective. That's why the uprising in Eastern Europe was able to oust Milosevic, because they were able to attract thousands and ultimately millions of people to their cause, because it was totally nonviolent and because they saw other people getting directly involved and they knew they were also inspired to do the same thing. So please know that whatever you choose to do, the world is watching and you are making a difference just by being here tonight. So thank you again to the defendants. I know you guys might have more questions about the FACE case, and I'm sure that PAAU is going to continue to give daily updates on things as they unfold in court. So know that you will be privy to all of the detailed arguments that are going to be made in court, and coming from both sides. So stay tuned for that. But in the meantime, just please remember to stay in solidarity, stay strong, and know that we can't win unless we're not willing to give up. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, Teresa. Thank you so much for being on tonight. Our very amazing motivational speaker. So like Teresa just mentioned, I know that everyone is very curious about what's going to happen.
Yeah.
They want to know what's going on. What are the details? What are the defenses? What's going to be going on? And so we're going to just do what we can tonight to give you just a small insight into what's going to be happening. Obviously, we don't know everything that's going to be happening, but we do have the information that we have been discussing with lawyers and everything. Go over a little bit to give you some information. Lauren and I are going to have a short conversation about that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you want to start us off.
I made a joke the other day that the prosecutors, the DOJ, they're going to present the case as I'm the worst person to ever exist, and then my defense is going to be like, actually, she's the best person to ever exist. But in reality, it's just somewhere in between. I saw a video in 2013 of Cesare Santangelo admitting that he leaves babies to die if they survive an abortion. I was going to college, working my way to be a museum curator. I thought I had my life planned out. I wanted to be in art restoration, work in a museum. And that was one of the things, the tipping points that made me leave college and join the pro-life movement full time. And fast forward to 2020, the beginning of 2020, I learned about what Teresa was working on at UCSF and what was happening with these born alive abortions and the harvesting of the organs with David Daleiden and his expose. And I went and I lived in San Francisco for a while, and then just coming back to that video I first saw that led to me leaving college and joining this movement full time. Then Cesare Santangelo is committing infanticide. And, last year we held those infanticide victims. I held Christopher X in my hands. I held Phoenix in my hands. And I never thought I'd be in the place I am now. I never thought I'd be the person the DOJ will paint or what the defense will paint. I was just a person who wanted to love my neighbor as the best of I could to the best of my ability. Each day we wake up and I ask myself, how can I love the person in front of me? And right now that is the unborn. And who knows, that might end up being the person I shall share my jail cell with. And I just think every day we should just ground ourselves in that question. Who is the person I need to love to the best of my ability today? And, what it comes down to is, I think really what we've been going back and forth. My lawyer has been filing motions, the judge filing counter motions. But Roe versus Wade was a big changer for this specific case because Roe is no longer a federal right. And so I think even with public records of what can be shared and what people can read and what news articles have been written about, is that because abortion is no longer a federal right, they're not even talking about this anymore as abortion is healthcare. They're talking about this as commerce, that interrupting commerce. And I just, as a full-time sidewalk counselor and as someone who we just recently, the PAAU team, myself, Caroline, and Kristen, recently just helped a mom who was seeking out abortion because of financial reasons, a wanted pregnancy, seeking out the survival abortion, knowing that our government and these abortion businesses are viewing them as revenue sources, as commerce. It sheds a light on the more disturbing aspects. Of course, the disturbing aspect of this case is the fact that, Cesare Santangelo commits infanticide and violates informed consent. He's killed patients. The autopsy report said that they found fetal debris in the mother's lung, that this victim who died, and the judge's response is that, well, that seems very incendiary and would disturb and upset the jury. And I'm like, yes,
It would.
any normal, sensible person who found out that a supposed doctor messed up an abortion procedure in someone's uterus so bad that fetal remains were found in the person's lungs, that would, upset any sensible person.
Yeah.
But I think what is important for us as pro-lifers is to see these shifts in patterns of verbiage and how people are describing what is going on. Using this as not even, let's be real, abortion is not even a healthcare, healthcare is not even a human right in America. So it's just like, if you want to push that aside, even if abortion could be considered healthcare, but it's like the calling people who are in crisis commerce and revenue sources is just very sickening. And so we're having to be very creative in our arguments that way, because it's not necessarily just, they're trying to say it's not about abortion, it's about commerce. And then, of course, they want to highlight, and like why I brought up in the beginning, they're going to try to paint the people who are my co-defendants and myself as the worst people to ever exist, because they want the jury to hate us, and they want to use fear and isolation. They are replicating of what the abortion industry does, using fear and isolation and dehumanization, when the reality is Cesare Santangelo commits infanticide, and that needs to stop.
Yeah.
It needs to stop.
Yeah. So you mentioned the jury.
Mhm.
So I want to just go over some just bare bones details for people who might be watching who really don't know anything. So you're going to be having a jury trial. We have an estimation of how long it might be taking, about
2 weeks.
2 weeks
Yeah.
ish.
The judge set aside 2 weeks for this trial.
Yeah. So what other details do you have that can kind of shine a light onto people who can't be in the courthouse of what this might look like?
The first couple days are going to be jury selection. They're going to be pulling people from DC proper. The jury selection comes from people who are registered to vote in DC, and that's who they pull for the jury selection. That's probably going to be the first couple days, and then you'll have the prosecutors, the DOJ's opening arguments, laying out their whole case, using the evidence against that they perceive that shows that we do what they're alleging. And then that's when it will come from our defense, who will give a defense of what happened, of preventing federal crimes and of things of that nature. And then there's the tail end of what the trial is, of like any other motions that need to be said, and then the jury deliberates. And so that's why it will probably take 2 weeks. It might go longer, hopefully not. And then whatever the outcome is, the worst of the worst, if we get guilty, then it's going to be 3 to 4 months before people get sentenced. So it's not like the movies where you get guilty and then immediately taken away.
They drag you off.
It's in certain cases, because of the level, we're in federal court, it's going to take 3 to 4 months after the verdict, if it is guilty. We're hoping for not guilty. I don't think I'm guilty. That's why I pleaded not guilty. But whatever happens, it's going to be used for good to save the lives of many. I believe strongly of wherever I am, there's people who need help. And it's very common and like-minded among my fellow defendants that wherever we're going to be placed, we're going to love the person in front of us to the best of our ability.
Yeah. Thank you. So I know, like Teresa said, there's lots of questions. There's a lot going on over here, but we are going to be giving as much information and details and updates over the next weeks as we can. So please make sure to be following us along with us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, everything. We're going to be trying to draw you into the trial with us, because we really wish that all of you could be here, but we understand that you can't. So we really are going to be keeping you updated. So please support us as much as you can online with interacting with our posts on social media. So I mean, we're going to start wrapping up. I wanted to just share one last thought. Something that we say a lot at PAAU, and you probably have seen this, that we say that we rescue the unborn, and the unborn rescue us. We are the unborn. We rescue us. That's something that we say a lot. I was thinking about this recently as I was reflecting on my first experience seeing a rescue and my first experience being at a rescue happening. And I was trying to think about, what is it exactly that the unborn are rescuing us from? And I was realizing, of course, we rescue the unborn from being murdered, from death. And I think there's lots of interpretations of what it is for different people. But for me, the unborn rescue us from selfishness, and rescue as a whole, as a principle, as an action. It creates love that abounds in all areas. So I think that that's an important thing to reflect on. And I think that is an exact interpretation of what was happening in 2020 at this rescue that we're discussing, which is why we're here right now. So I wanted to leave you with that. I really want to ask you all to please help support PAAU in this time. This is probably the most important thing, definitely the most important thing this year that PAAU as an organization and as a community is going to be doing. One of the most important things that we're going to be going through in our existence. We need your support. We are here on the ground doing what we can. We are out on the streets. We are holding the signs. We are doing the press conferences. We need your support in person. We need your support online and in social media. And we need your support through your donations. So I really want to invite you to support us in any way that you can. And specifically help fund us to get us through the next couple weeks. It's going to be a very intense couple weeks. We're going to be out doing the work all day long, and we need support in order to make it through. So I want to invite you to give what you can. You can text the word PAAU, P-A-A-U, to this number 801-801, and you'll be able to give what you can when you can to help support our efforts here in DC. Like I said, it's going to be a very taxing, long couple weeks, and we're going to be doing our best. We're going to be standing strong and being out there to be a voice for these children, for these babies that are the victims of infanticide of Cesare Santangelo. And we need you to come behind us and support us in that. So please consider giving. If you can't right now, please consider in the next couple weeks as we move through this trial. And please make sure to follow along through our emails, through our social media. And if you can be here in person, we would love to welcome you. So thank you guys so much for joining tonight. Feel free to share this video with your friends. It will be on our YouTube after to watch. And just keep a lookout for updates as we go through the week. We're heading to pretrial tomorrow morning, so it's starting to get real. And yeah, I'm very grateful for everyone that came tonight. Thank you so much for watching.
Yeah.
And we will see you guys later.
A better world is possible, and it starts with us.
It does. And you can be part of it.
Please be part of it.
Thank you guys. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Bye.
Bye.